Now we will be moving on to our next talk. So we have Mr. Lau. Okay, hi, Mr. Lau, who is a member of the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants, ACCA, and he's also MCKL's ACCA course advisor. And he will be speaking about what it's like being an accountant in the digital era. Okay, Mr. Lau, you can take it away.
Hi, thank you very much, Kimberly. Okay, I'm going to share my screen, so just give me a moment. Okay, Kimberly, can you see my screen?
Yeah, looks good.
Fantastic. All right, good morning, guys. Morning, ladies and gentlemen, that's right on the screen. Today, our topic of the webinar is accountants in the digital era. Well, I guess if this title is going to attract you, every parents or even students want to ask a very valid question, the prospects, like, can I go on with what I'm going to study for many years to come? Can I use what I study in my life, even for work, for own business? Now, so I thought of first to share some of those reports from the news to open up our discussions before we go on. This is actually a news reported in the Star. It's actually in June 2021, so it's really not very dated. I just want to show the heading, that's all. It says that accountants are among top 5 professionals in demand. And what we're going to see next is this. I would like to share y'all another screenshots taken. Basically, it's the prospects or the outlook of accountants in US. And you can see that I'm just going to magnify to this part where it talks about the job outlook. If you take notice, the outlook for 2019 to 2029, the statistics report that it will actually be 4%. And in bracket, it says that it's as fast as average. We are not going to be faster than the average, and yet we are not slower. We're just in pace. So this can answer a bit of our curiosity that whether accountants will soon be obsolete, will be out of jobs. You got to start studying a new thing. That we're going to explore a bit more on that shortly. Now, before I go into really about the prospects and accountants in the digital era, allow me to show you in a nutshell the things that we study in the professional accountancy qualifications like ACCA. Now, we actually focus on financial accounting, management accounting, that there are actually 3 papers in the entire program, 3 papers each. That means we are talking about a total of 6 papers that relates to financial accounting, management accounting. Now, for those who finds all these a jargon, I just want to use a simple way to explain to you. Financial accounting basically is to tell how well your business is doing in the past. Management accounting is about telling managers how well business is going to be in the future. So we don't just talk about the past, we talk about future, all right? Now, then we will also be having subject area like auditing, which talks about controls, fraud, risk. It's about checks and balances. It's about if the figures are telling the truth. If you are talking about running your own business and you do not want to be there in the business, people like to say, like, if I'm not there, what if one day I realize that my business, Chinese use the word eaten up, my business is gone. Now, we do talk about things like controls and so on in auditing. Now, then we deal with finance. It's all about money. We talk about taxation. Now, taxation, it's basically an area that I specialize in. And it's a very, very legit area that we all must consider. There's always a joke. 2 things that's very certain in life. One is death. The other one is paying taxes. All right. Now, think about this. It's about 1/4 of what you earn goes to the government. That's a lot of money. Okay. Now, and we have lots and lots of developments in the taxation industries. I mean, just look at Malaysia. Effective next year, we are starting to talk about foreign incomes that you're going to bring back will be taxed. So those of you who are listening, if you've got properties overseas, if you've got jobs overseas, businesses overseas, investments overseas, I've got friends who have been working in Singapore for years and has got a couple of FDs in Singapore, and he's asking like, what do I do with that kind of money? And then do I have to bring it back or do I leave it there? You see, all these questions are still very valid, and it's still going to continue to be valid in the future. Now, we talk about subjects like business, strategy, and management. I think that the title itself literally tells us it's about strategies. It tells us about leadership, organization skill. How do you become more enterprising? How do you become a CEO? All right. Do we actually have a paper that tell people to become a CEO, right? You know, that kind of thing. Now, there'll be 2 papers each in the whole qualifications that covers on all these area. And finally, there's an area called law. That we all are living in a civilized society where the norms, the community norms are all translated into law. How can you do anything by not knowing the law, right? So we have so many different laws that we need to understand in business. Your employment law, your business law, your corporate law, there's just so much that we need you to be aware so that you do the right thing and you avoid doing the wrong thing. Now, this is just an overview of what we get to students if they embark into the studies of ACCA. Now, I would like to start to get you guys to imagine this. Now, what kind of job will your qualification land you onto? And another question I want you to think about is what kind of industry that will you be joining? You know, like take, for example, my son is very talented in art. So he has been sharing with me that he wants to study something concerning art. But you know, I've been telling him, you know, loving to draw is one thing, but thinking about what you want to do with the skills is another. So likewise, like if you're going to think of studying ACCA, what kind of specific job, or is there a specific industry that you will be in? All right. Now, before I show you the next slide, I would like you all to think about this. Just simple questions that you could just got to ask and ponder about upon this is, think of any business or even any organization, not just business, you know, even charity, even government, all right? Just any kind of entity or organization that does not deal with money. Think about that, okay? That if there's any organizations that you know that does not deal with money at all, they don't want to know how much money they have, they don't want to know how much money they spend, they don't want to know how much money that they're going to use, now then you would have named something that we are not needed. But if you say, I can't be thinking of that at the moment, okay, now that means you are basically finding it difficult to think of a place that we are not be required, okay? So if that's the case, now think about the chance of this being replaced, all right? Now I'm showing you on the screen, basically a list of all the different kind of job titles that are being advertised in the ACCA career website. Now, you can see, I'm not going to read you the whole list, but you can see there's lots and lots of titles that we are called. So when you study a program like ACCA, you're actually not becoming only an accountant. You can have many roles that you play. In fact, there are some very nice names that they are not being advertised here. For example, there is no advertisement for CEO. What that does not mean that you cannot be a CEO. But I simply believe that most organizations would not advertise a CEO position like that because it just doesn't look good. Now, so there are actually many more jobs applicable with your qualification, but let me just focus on one, the first one, because that's the one that seems to have the most opening, about 15,000 jobs. And in these 15,000 jobs, I would like to share with you where are the locations of these jobs. And you can see that there Africa, there's Asia, there's China, there's North America. You can see there's lots and lots of places, but I want to draw your attention to this. Do you see something called home working? It's something that is not very common in the past, but I need to let you know that technology disrupts even the job market. Now, can you imagine working for a company in UK, earning pounds sterling, but you're staying in Malaysia with your loved ones? I mean, this is something that we have never thought of happening in the past, but you, in a way, you have to agree that COVID has brought a lot of changes that was unimaginable in the past, but it's now possible. So now you have already started to see corporations, they don't mind hiring candidates of different nations simply because they allow you to work from home. All right. Well, of course, the package might be different, but there is these opportunities. All right. Now, and in terms of the job sectors that you're in, now I've just said, right, it's hard to think of an organization that basically don't deal with money. It's hard to look at an organization that don't want accountability. So you just look at on the screen the sectors that we can serve. I can look at banking, digital, legal, insurance, pharmaceutical, retail, fast-moving consumer goods, manufacturing, consultancy. The list just go on and on. Now, what does that tell me? Now, that tells me that if I want a change of flavor, if let's say I'm in banking line for so long and I just thought like, I'm sick of looking at the banking industry and I want something kind of like different to refresh my career life, all right? Well, you can still be dealing with money, but you can always switch to a different sector that you have never tried. Our options and our scopes are really, really wide, all right? Now, so back to these questions, the future digital era, all right? Now, we've been hearing a lot of people been talking about accountants becoming jobless, accountants will be replaced by computers. So let me just share with you again some screenshots of articles, and then you can see how true is this. Now, this was actually reported in New Straits Times. It's actually not very long ago. It talks about the changing labor markets. If you see the date is 2019, and 2019 is just exactly like 2 years from now. In fact, it's on the 8th of December. All right. Now, and look at the contents of the article. Now, this is where it says 13 types of jobs potentially will be automated. And then it was actually mentioned by the Home Resources Ministers. About 11 to 54% of the jobs in Malaysia will be displaced. It will be affected by artificial intelligence. And then he adds on 50% of the jobs in Malaysia are at risk, high risk, including accounting. So when this article was out, my friend immediately called me up and say, hey, you read the news. Is this true? Should I still send my sons to learn ACCA if this is true, and so on? Now, before I talk about future, let's talk about presently, okay? There are still many jobs opening for ACCA at the present. There are still a lot of firms looking for candidates out there, and they still have struggles to get candidates, all right? I just recently received one from my friends that is advertising for jobs and asked me, please share with your students because we really, really need a lot of workers coming in. We have a lot of active recruitments going on, all right? Now, so at the present moment, I don't see a problems of graduates not able to get job. Even though when they say the pandemic has affected a lot the outlook, but I don't see much of the problems over here, okay? Now, but what we really are concerned is the next 20 to 30 or even 50 years ahead, all right? Now, so you see, with all these technology and environmental changes, we expect there'll be a lot of displacement of jobs, all right? Now, many people who say that jobs are missing and jobs will now be obsolete, all right? I mean, of course, it is quite true. If I remembered, my father-in-law, his family started off with, I mean, not him, but that means my grandfather-in-law, all right? They used to deal with bicycles. And then, of course, after a while, people don't take bicycles and then they start to use motorbikes. So they evolve into repairing motorbikes. And now you can see that the amount of motorbikes are actually getting lesser and lesser. So the businesses start to get like less so-called less bright, and then eventually they start to see that their businesses is not doing so well. As they age, they find that business is just going down and down and down, And of course, naturally, they come to age that they retire, and then they find that it doesn't really matter. Now, of course, can that kind of business go on for the next 10, 20 years? Now, that's a big question mark, okay? So we start to see people look at the kind of example and then put it up onto prospects of jobs like accountants, and then think that accountants will also be displaced in the same manner. Now, but I would like to share that while many jobs got displaced, at the same time, there's a lot of new jobs are being created. So we're actually having a problems that existing workers are losing jobs, while a lot of new workers, a lot of new jobs are being created, and they are not able to replace or substitute the new skills that we need. So the true crisis that we are actually facing is the skills gap, that people are not able to bring up to the skills that's needed. Now, let me just give you a very simple example that I believe all of us would have experienced during the pandemic. Let's just take hawker stall, for example, selling noodles, all right? So are we saying technology changes and all these kind of evolution means that they are no longer needed, that we don't see that there is a need to sell food? Now, but we do agree that disruptions took place during the pandemic. We do see that there are some businesses go out of business, they failed, they couldn't make it. But we do see a lot of examples of those who prosper. But we definitely see good examples of those who adapted. All right, the keyword is adapting to the environment. Now, I can see examples of aunties and uncles who they don't really like technology, but they adopt technology. They start to go into e-wallet. They start to learn how to use WhatsApp for business. Now, even WhatsApp has WhatsApp business that allow us to set up your online catalogs. You can do business by sharing up a link. Now, we saw those people that we never expected that they're going to go into that, but they were forced into that kind of situations just to keep business going. And they start to use simple mechanism of technology to, example, use WhatsApp as the way of how they manage their customers' database, business catalogs. They adopted Lala Move to deliver their food, and they survive, they thrive, all right? Now, so we are looking at an example that technologies are here not to replace everything, but is to improve things. So the question is, are we adaptive, and do we have the kind of skill to ride onto that? So that is what we are looking. Now, so the questions that we are facing right now, the challenge that we have just said to you about the skills gap, now how does ACCA overcome it? Because if you're going to study this qualification and you don't see a solution to a problem, then don't come in. Because honestly, then I will have no confidence to tell you that once you finish this qualification, how far that it will take you to. But I'm very confident to tell you that it can take you far. Now, just take, for example, being a professional accountant. I'm talking about those that's already in the market. Those that they've graduated, they're working, my peers, my seniors, partners of the firm, they're out there, We don't study about all these new stuff those days back then in our college. I don't remember a topic on artificial intelligence. I remember what I studied about IT those days during my time as a CCA is to learn about diskettes, learn about hard disk, learn about what is called optical character recognition, which is the use of scanner. And those days we are so bombastic about all that. But today, all these things is so obsolete. We don't talk about all that, but we need to update the skills. And we talk about continuous professional developments. The CPD is a very, very unique feature when you become a professional, all right? Now, basically, we are required, being a professional like an ACCA, to maintain certain credit hours of professional development every year. Now, and not only that, the professions itself know exactly what will be relevant and what will be needed, so that instead of us going and shop around and ask like what are the things that we need to update ourselves, it's all right in front of us. But questions is we have to move to pick it up. the food is there, but we have to move and go there and eat it. All right. So that's where the attitude comes in. All right. Now that's about those who are existing. So what about the students that they're going to undergo this kind of learning right now? All right. Now we can see ACCA has done a couple of things to stay relevant, to stay ahead. Now, first, for new graduates, we make sure that relevant skills are embedded within the program structures. So we are talking about a lot of very practical things that they will need right after they've graduated, they go into the workplace. These are the things that they're going to use, and they're going to have it. They're going to study and they're going to learn that. In fact, we also incorporate students with our ICDL certifications, where they learn about advanced spreadsheets, advanced presentation. Now, do you know it's actually more damaging to an organization if, let's say, I'm going to send you, for example, if let's say you're an audit manager, you're supposed to present in front of the board of directors of a listed company your audit memorandum, but you can't speak, you can't present, you don't know the proper way. Now, that's actually more damaging by not knowing so much about what is artificial intelligence. So it's a kind of skills that we need to build onto the graduates, which we are doing that as part of the program. Now, and ACCA has actually adopted computer-based examination very, very much earlier, many, many years before this. We already have that. And that means we naturally believe that students will need to learn how to use basic spreadsheets, basic word processor skills. It's not something like we're going to tell you, let's have a class to study 4 sessions about how to use Microsoft Word, but it comes natural as part of the skills. Because if you don't have that kind of skills, you can't even operate the systems to sit for the exam. And then we have very frequent revision of the syllabus. We are not studying something that's always the same. ACCA will tune the syllabus to make sure that we're producing graduates, that they're employable, that they're needed by the workforce. All right. Now, I mentioned about CPD, so I thought of sharing a bit to all our audience over here. Now, this is just a screenshot of example of if I want to go and sign up CPD. Now, again, COVID has made something remarkable is a lot of CPDs are now available online. So it's so much more convenient. Now, this is just one page. Now, another page that I just want to show you. Look at the kind of topics that we have here. Future of work, AI, robots, and automation. Are you ready for what lies ahead? We have a short course on that just to tell us what we have to do. Life hack with cyber security, harnessing digital technology for accountants. It isn't all the things that we're concerning about digitalization and losing of jobs, but no, we're equipping ourselves to get ready with that. Okay. Now, guys, we know that technology evolve, business evolve, finance and accountancy also evolve, taxation evolve, everything evolve. Nothing stays the same. We change all the time. The business environment is actually getting more and more complicated. We're living in a complex world now. We're living in a world that information is just moving so fast, and the amount of information that we need to process is so much. It's just unlike those days. I just give you an example about taxation, since I specialize in taxation, right? We are moving, just talk about Malaysia. We're moving from an era that we don't have GST to we have GST. And then GST was short-lived, and then we came to SST, and now we've been hearing people talking about maybe GST is going to come back in the future. Now, we have the kind of dynamic change in the taxation environment. Talk about international taxes. The international business is getting very complex. Malaysia is still working on digital taxes. There's still many things that they're changing. Now, how fast can AI catch up to replace the human brains? Now, I'm not in a state of denial to tell you that no, humans will never be able to be replaced by computers in certain function. I didn't say that. There are already many functions that's being replaced by computers, but it's to improve the process of work that we do, because the quality of life is improving. we start to understand that labor costs are very expensive. So if technologies can help us to reduce certain aspects of the job to make things cheaper for business, we adopt that. Now, why don't all the factories in Malaysia automate their processes? Because they still see the capabilities of them sourcing for cheaper labor than to invest in the more expensive machines. It's going to happen, but I'm not denying, all right, it's going to happen. But what happened now is we are still in need of accountants because of the fast evolving world. Things are changing. So our roles might be very different, but we are very valid. We're very affirm. You know, guys, so if people ever like to ask the questions that they like to throw to me, will accountants be truly obsolete? So I usually like to ask the questions. Now, we will become obsolete when you believe that currency or money are no longer needed. So if you think that there will be a day that you don't need money anymore, you do not need currency anymore, yet that will be the time that we truly retire from all the things that we do. So tell me in your own estimates how long that will come to that point. Now, then that will be a way of guessing when we'll be out of jobs. All right. Now, I just want to share with you about example of how our syllabus has evolved over the years. That we have already introduced things like cryptocurrency, blockchain, cloud computing, digital marketing, data analytics, you know, as early as 2018. You know, all these things are already there in the studies. Now, but I want to clarify, we don't study technologies like we want to become an IT expert. We're not doing that. We're studying all these to understand the implications to business. For example, when we talk about blockchain, the immutable ledger of informations, how would that affect the auditing industries? How would that improve integrity of information? In what way that this become, you know, can be implemented for business to get things to be even better? We study about the implications. We study about the applications because we're meant to be strategists. We're meant to go into a business and say, hey, have you considered this? You know, this is a way forward. And we transform business because we have the knowledge. And recently, you know, our syllabus is introduced the concepts of machine learning, robotics, you know, RPA, like robotic process automation, artificial intelligence, all these, we touch on all these matters in our studies. Now, that is just to show you that we are staying ahead, all right? Now, so I just want to close this with a couple of final points. Now, when we think about ACCA, all right, now, of course, I believe that those who are watching this, you see, you truly have this concern. Should I send my kid to study ACCA? Or if I send my kid to study ACCA, do I put him or her in that right track? Or if, let's say, I'm a student, I'm very interested to deal with accountings, you know, I want to deal with numbers. Am I getting a right choice? All right. Now, of course, there's a lot of factors that we have to evaluate behind that question. So I'm going to give some very general perspective. Then if you need to have more information, this is where you can come to the counselings and talk to counselors and ask for our perspective. You can directly speak to me if you want to hear, even from my perspective, being a practitioner in the market and also an educationist that is dealing with academics. I can give you and share with you what is out there, all right? But what I want to close here is, number one, this is a qualification that is being very relevant to the job market. You know, it's truly a no-nonsense kind of qualification that we have. I mean, we have many examples of students that they're doing like part-time, in the sense like they want to study, well, for whatever reasons, sometimes economical reasons or circumstances, they need to study and work. They can go to work with just one or two subjects that they've learned, and they're able to cope. But that's because we are giving something that is so relevant to the job market that once you're out there, that's exactly what you need. All right. Now, we're talking about affordability over here. you know, if I would just give a rough estimates of FIA, which usually, you know, if let's say you're SPM students, you will come in at what we call the foundation in accountancy. And then you will spend a year, then you come into ACCA where it takes you another 2 years. It's about 3 years education. The 3 years education will cost you around 50,000 ringgit. That's very, very affordable. Now think about, you know, 50,000 over 36 months. The amount that you are paying, you know, it's like that 1,000 plus a month. Okay, that's a very affordable price tag in terms of what you're going to invest and how soon you will be able to get a payback and how soon that you're able to see a fruits of your investment. Now, so it's a very affordable cost that we're talking about over here. So it's very practical, it's very affordable. And the third point I want to share is this. It's about international recognition. That, you know, we have been hearing things like Indonesia is coming up. We've been hearing that Vietnam is coming up. Philippines is chasing from the back. And we've been hearing Asian will be the next powerhouse of economy. That we all know that all that is going to come true, all right? Because things that all these countries are going to raise up to become stronger and better, it will all happen, okay? Now we're going to see more and more multinationals that they will set up, you know, businesses in different parts of the nation. That the questions is the integration. That we need somebody that is able to integrate even when we're talking about international business. And that will only be possible if you're having an international recognition. Now thinking about if you are, you're getting a job with a country, I mean, in a company in Malaysia, a multinational corporation that has an opening that requires to post you to Vietnam, you're not going to have a problem if it goes with an ACCA, but because of an international recognition. That we always believe sincerely for our students that a course that will end you with a lot of options is always one of a good choice. You know, it's always good to have options open, all right? That's all my sharing for today. So I would like to sum up that what about the accountants in the digital era? I would like to tell you guys, like, don't worry, we will not be replaced by robots because the world is very complicated. The robots will not be as fast as us because of how we want to change, all right? And money will always stay relevant and you always need people to take care of the money. And that's what exactly we do, okay? All right, so that's all for my sharing with y'all today. So I would like to leave the time for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Lau. I completely did not know that about ACCA, so it's very insightful. So it's time for Q&A right now. So if you have any questions, leave them in the chat or in the Q&A function. Maybe I'll start us off with one question for Mr. Lau. When pursuing foundation in accountancy, how open are my options when furthering my studies?
Okay, now I think we got to be very honest with that questions, all right? If you would like to come into FIA because you're not very sure of what you do, then basically you're entering what we call a narrow door that will lead you to a more narrow pathway, all right? Because you're doing a foundation in accountancy. So how possible for a person who started off with foundation in accountancy and later on says that I would like to switch to do medicine, you know, it's like completely like totally out, all right? So so we tell our students that you have to consider very, very carefully that is this what you want to do, all right? So sometimes we tell or we advise our students, don't look at what you're going to study, but look at what you want to be and what you want to do. Ask around people that are in the kind of jobs. Do you find that the kind of job is inspiring to you? Because it's never going to be, you know, fulfilling in your life when you come to a stage that you just take job as a kind of job like the reason why I want to work is because I need money so that I will have bread on my table to feed my family. I don't think that's a very nice way of putting at it. But if let's say you look at it and you truly know that what you're up to, and then you're like decided, yes, that's the journey that I want to be in, then please consider FIA. Now, the reason why FIA is a bit more narrow, because it's an exclusive pathway designed for ACCA qualification. It's the shortest fast track way. The thing about the time that you're going to spend right after your SPM, you will take only 1 year to do FIA. And then you will take about another 2 years to finish off ACCA because of the exemptions. Now we're talking about you are coming up to your, your career. I mean, if you get through everything as early as the age of late 20s, I mean, that's very young, all right? But that's the fast track that we're talking about. Now, although it's very young, like to Malaysians, they find that it's very young, but to the Europeans, sometimes it's actually not that young, because we have cases where people are already starting their studies of FIA as young as the age of 16. And then they actually started doing their ACCA at a younger age, and they do graduate at very, very young age, all right? But that does not mean that I encourage you all to do that, because we still need some kind of maturities to understand the money matters. But to answer your questions, Kimberly, it's not going to be a very flexible option. So you do have to consider carefully. But the beauty is FIA takes 1 year. So even after 1 year, you decided that, okay, I want to switch into something else because I really find that it's not my cup of tea. You will not waste the 1 year, because the knowledge that you've acquired is very relevant, because you still learn about figures, you still learn about business, and you need all that in whatever stage of life that we're going to go through.
Okay, I don't think we have any further questions for Mr. Lau. If there are any further questions, then perhaps do drop by, and MCK and one of our counselors can help to answer your questions. Thank you so much, Mr. Lau, for your insights on ACCA.
Thank you for having me, and God bless everyone. Have a nice week. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.